Hello, everybody. Greetings. I'm Azra Saeed, the Secretary General for the International League of People's Struggle. So welcome to our final information session for the Right to Resist, the International People's Tribunal for Palestine. We are just 1 week away from the momentous and long-awaited occasion to assert wholeheartedly the Palestinian people's right to resist the brutal Zionist occupation and the imperialist backers such as the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, and other world powers complicit in the genocide, in the ecocide, and the weaponization of food. We have seen so many people come together over the past few months to prepare for the tribunal. And we are excited that you're all here with us today as we put our final preparations in order. So before we begin, please let me explain the language interpretation feature. We have interpreters available for Spanish and French today. At the bottom of your screen, you should see a globe icon on the Zoom menu bar. Please click this icon and select the language you need. If you do not see the globe, you may need to click the 3 dots titled More to find the interpretation option. This event is being conducted in a webinar format, meaning only our speakers can use their microphones. We strongly encourage all of you to submit your questions in the Q&A box provided, and they will be posed to the speakers during our Q&A session at the end of after all the speakers have finished. We are also live streaming the event. Please share the link now across your social media and with your contacts and friends, organizations. We will monitor and include questions coming in from the social media feeds as well. This webinar will be recorded and posted on the ILPS web platforms, including the Right to Resist website. Please note that no participants' names will be shown in the recording. And now let's get started. So our first speaker today will be Lisa Shaheen from the Arab Group for the Protection of Nature. Lisa will give us a background on what has been the situation on the ground in occupied Palestine in Gaza since the signing of the so-called ceasefire. That the Zionists have broken every single day, as we all know. And also in the West Bank, where settler attacks, army raids, mass arrests, and home demolitions are taking place daily, with hardly a single headline anywhere. It is the dire situation for the people and the unconscionable crimes of the US Zionist forces that calls us to hold a tribunal next weekend, and we all must remember why we are doing this and whom are we fighting for. Lisa, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Azra. Dear friends and comrades, thank you so much for inviting me to speak today at this important moment as we prepare for the Tribunal for Palestine next week. Today, I want to speak about the current situation in Gaza after the ceasefire, the intensifying aggression across the West Bank, and why this tribunal is not only timely, but necessary. So we were told that a ceasefire would pause the killing, allow humanitarian relief to flow, and open the door to healing and reconstruction. Instead, what followed has been the continuation of genocide through new and restructured forms. The ceasefire period has been punctured by recurrent violations, attacks, and suffocating restrictions that have kept Gaza in a permanent state of death and displacement. Independent monitor report near daily violations of the agreement, including air and artillery strikes, shootings, arrests, and restrictions on movement, all of which have killed and injured Palestinians even after the ceasefire was declared. Until November 10th, the Israeli occupation had violated the agreement over 282 times. 260 Palestinians have been killed since the ceasefire began, an average of 8 Palestinians every single day. And these numbers, like the number of Palestinians martyred through the genocide, are severely underestimated. Gaza's health system is destroyed. Countless bodies remain under rubble. Entire families cannot report their dead. The occupation has also destroyed more than 1,500 buildings in areas under its control since the ceasefire, proof that destruction did not end. It simply took on a different structure. And food aid continues to be weaponized. People in Gaza tell us that the small trickle of trucks allowed in are carrying almost exclusively junk food, nothing that addresses the man made famine. Fuel is still blocked, seeds and agricultural inputs are still blocked, everything needed for life and recovery is still blocked. So, despite repeated declarations that the war is over, we do not believe the colonial occupier or its backers. But this is not new. We saw temporary truces in late 2023. We saw the January 2025 ceasefire. And in each of these, the pattern repeated. The Israeli occupation violated agreements immediately and systematically. And it is not only in Gaza. The occupation repeatedly breached ceasefire understandings with Lebanon as well, where civilians continue to be killed by bombardment. The occupation has deliberately targeted engineers, workers, and individuals who are capable of rebuilding Lebanon's devastated infrastructure. A reminder that ecocide is part of the colonial warfare strategy. So we must also critically examine the agreement itself. We need to ask who drafted this plan? Who does it serve? What does it legitimize? Because the plan was crafted entirely without Palestinians, much like previous frameworks like the Oslo Accords, which entrenched occupation rather than end it. It allows the occupation to retain control over about half of Gaza during the first stage and declares massive no go zones that fragment the strip and restrict movement. It effectively finalizes the destruction of Gaza's agricultural capacity, giving the occupation continued control over 58% of Gaza, including the fertile buffer zones critical for rebuilding food sovereignty. The yellow lines marking these zones have themselves become death traps, with Palestinians shot even where boundaries are not clear. The plan uses the language of economic development and technocratic committees that echo what happened in Iraq, where destruction was followed by aggressive neoliberal restructuring to undermine sovereignty and keep the country dependent on foreign powers. The plan promises 600 trucks a day, but this is purely conditional. The occupation controls what enters, when, where, and whether essential items like fuel, spare parts, seeds, and medical equipment are allowed. So we must ask, is this a ceasefire or is this a restructured genocide? And we recognize the colonial playbook here, a plan that is drafted in complete isolation of Palestinians, much like the Oslo Accords, which only entrenched occupation and land grabs. So, what makes this plan any different? At the same time, the West Bank is experiencing one of the most violent periods in its modern history. Since the genocide in Gaza began, over 1,000 Palestinians have been killed in the West Bank, including over 200 children. There has been 1,600 military raids, which is a 22% increase from previous years. Over 40,000 people have been displaced. Settler colonial expansion has accelerated at an unprecedented pace. In 2025 alone, Israeli planning bodies have advanced over 25,000 settlement housing units. And since December 2022, over 50 new settlements have been announced. Over 25,000 dunums of West Bank land were declared state land in 2024, the highest since Oslo, with more confiscations ongoing in 2025. Agricultural attacks are also escalating. 52,300 trees have been destroyed or damaged since October 7th. Hundreds of attacks during harvest seasons, including in 2024 and 2025. Nearly 700 tree vines destroyed in a single reporting period. There are dozens of communities who have lost tens of thousands of dunums of unharvested land. Water pumps, irrigation networks, and wells have been repeatedly sabotaged. And at least 120 settler attacks against agricultural communities has resulted in deaths or serious injuries. This is not incidental. This is a deliberate strategy of dispossession designed to fragment territory, uproot livelihoods, and eliminate the conditions for a Palestinian future. So why does the tribunal matter now more than ever? Because the genocide did not end. It simply mutated. Because the international system has failed to stop it or hold perpetrators accountable. When states, courts, and multilateral bodies stall or are politically blocked, people's tribunals become a space where truth can be spoken freely and publicly. So, in simple terms, this tribunal gives voice to those the world has failed. It brings together survivors, families, experts, and witnesses to build a record that the world cannot ignore. A tribunal builds the moral and political pressure needed to shift international opinion. It lays the groundwork for sanctions, legal referrals, and future prosecution. It preserves evidence now while bombs, bulldozers, and displacement are actively erasing it. And it becomes part of the historical record that future generations and legal bodies will rely on. Allow me to end with this. Genocide does not end when the bomb stops. It ends when the world refuses to look away. And this tribunal is our collective refusal. We end today not with despair, but with clarity. The occupier wants a world where Palestinians go unheard, where agreements erase crimes, and where silence replaces accountability. This tribunal destroys that silence. If states will not deliver justice, then people will. And if institutions fail, memory will not. And if the powerful refuse to be held accountable, then we will build the pressure, the evidence, and the global solidarity that will one day make accountability unavoidable. So this tribunal is not just a symbol, it is a beginning of a record that outlives governments, outlives propaganda, and outlives the machinery of genocide. A beginning of a collective insistence that Palestine's truth will be heard, honored, and carried forward. We refuse to be silenced and we refuse to be erased. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. That was very, very powerful and highlights exactly why we want the tribunal to be held. It is a documentation of the colonial warfare strategy, which, as you said, has not ended. And very, very well said that even when the bombs stop, the genocide does not stop. And what will stop the genocide is the right to resist of the people, the right to speak of the people. What is happening in Gaza is no more a hidden secret. Everybody knows, and you have laid out the facts very well, and then also elaborated on what is happening in the West Bank. And then, of course, what happened in Iraq about 20 years ago is exactly the plan that they have now for Gaza. And I really, really would like to repeat what Lisa just said, that the tribunal is for making sure that the war criminals are held accountable, they are sanctioned, and they are brought to court um, to pay for what has been done, although nothing can really pay for what has been done. But also, the tribunal is very critical for capturing the information that generations from now will read and remember what not only the Zionist entity is capable of, but also US imperialism, because the Zionists could not have stood for a single day without the kind of help that the Americans, the US imperialists, have provided. So thank you very much, Lisa, for reminding us of what has happened and the real critical need for the people to stand up and fight back and break the silence. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, friends, we will now take some time to watch the videos and messages from our endorsers of the International People's Tribunal for Palestine. It is a mark of people's commitment to finding accountability against the war crimes of the Zionist and US imperialism. And we would really like to, we appreciate the kind of help that we have got. Since we have launched the tribunal, we have had more than 200 people, 200 organizations have signed in or have endorsed the tribunal. You can see all of these organizations from every continent around the world on the tribunal website at internationalsolidarity.org/tribunal. So please do visit and do also encourage others to endorse the tribunal. We will now play these videos to hear from some of those organizations who have endorsed the tribunal. Thank you to our endorsers. You may visit the Instagram pages of the International People's Front, International League of People's Struggles, and so on. Let me just stop here and have the videos played. Thank you so much.
We at Al Paz Filipinas endorse the International People's Tribunal for Palestine. We believe from Palestine to the Philippines, we must stop the US war machine. We must stop climate imperialism from destroying our lands and our home. And we believe in international solidarity and the right to resist. Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Justice now!
I am Faikura of Gantala Press, a feminist small press based in the Philippines that is also part of the Publishers for Palestine Network. Gantala Press endorses Right to Resist, the International People's Tribunal for Palestine, which will take place on November 22 and 23 in Barcelona. The tribunal will be presenting evidence and testimonies from victims and eyewitnesses on the atrocities perpetrated by the United States and Israel against the people of Palestine, documenting the genocide and demanding justice and accountability. It shall memorialize the struggle of the Palestinian people alongside comrades and allies from all over the world fighting against colonialism and imperialism. As writers, artists, and cultural workers that significantly help in shaping the future, it is a responsibility to protect and fight for life, land, self-determination, and national liberation from the river to the sea. Free Palestine!
I am Janila Castro, spokesperson of Kalikasan People's Network for the Environment and member of Commission 19 on Environment and Climate Justice of ILPS. And we endorse the International People's Tribunal for Palestine this upcoming November 22 to 23 in Barcelona. It is entitled The Palestinian People versus the Zionist Occupation and the U.S. Government. This tribunal aims to establish the historical record of U.S.-backed Zionist occupation's war of forced starvation and ecocide in Palestine, to mobilize international solidarity and to exert moral and political pressure on complicit governments and international institutions. In the Philippines, we are also experiencing the U.S.-backed crimes against the Filipino people through the puppet and fascist regime that systematically attacks the people and plunder the environment. This endorsement is one of our ways to show our solidarity to the Palestinian people fighting for liberation against the occupation and ecocide.
So let me thank our endorsers one more time. We are very grateful for the support. I'll just repeat myself. Please visit our Instagram if you would like to see more of our work on the tribunal up till now. And you can still endorse yourself by visiting internationalsolidarity.org/tribunal-endorse. We also encourage you to read our recent articles published in the Palestine Chronicle and also the Black Agenda Report, as well as a podcast review on Black Agenda Report. The links to these are being shared in the Zoom chat right now. If you are a member of the media, we have organizers and participants of the tribunal who are available for interviews, and our press releases are all posted on our website. You can email, excuse me, you can email at Palestine IPT Media, PALESTINE IPT Media at gmail.com to get in touch with us directly for this. The rest of our program today will focus on the tribunal and on the tribunal itself. Lisa laid bare the dire situation facing the people in Palestine due to the full support of the genocidal Zionist project from the US and other imperialist powers of the world. It is important to understand how this tribunal will contribute to the measures to demand accountability and support the people's resistance to the ground, on the ground. I will now pass it over to Edre Olalia and Zarina Edre Olalia from the Tribunal Legal Committee to walk us through what to expect at the tribunal next weekend and how it aims to achieve its goals. Edre, the floor is yours. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Asra. Good evening from Manila to all our friends and colleagues and comrades. Well, I will cover for Charina because she's still working on some of our documents. We only have less than a week to go. But before I walk you through the process and the tribunal itself, let me just reiterate what makes this tribunal significant or even unique for that matter, no? Among so many other reasons. Well, first of all, the focus here is not solely on genocide, which is already an established fact, but also to focus and zoom in on the issue of ecocide, which in simple terms is the deliberate and intentional destruction of natural resources and the environment that leads to forced starvation and famine with the intent to annihilate or exterminate a certain group of people or peoples and race or class. No? And secondly, what makes this tribunal unique is that unlike many of the very good initiatives, platforms, and channels and events, the evidence that will be presented before the tribunal will be useful and will be used in existing legal mechanisms and future legal action, including the mode of what we lawyers call the universal jurisdiction, where defendants who live outside one country can be prosecuted in that country nonetheless for various crimes. And then, most importantly, I think the uniqueness and significance of this tribunal is that it looks the narrative from the perspective of the people, which is very much unlike the many existing legal and judicial platforms. Having said all that, I think it should also be stressed that while this is a tribunal, it is not a strictly judicial um, a procedure or event, but it's more of a quasi-political initiative uh, convened by the people themselves to the organizations that are involved. Now I would segue to the dramatis personae, or the so-called um, individuals that will perform certain functions in the tribunal. But I would like to caution, though, that I cannot give a very specific data or particulars for obvious security reasons, but in time, of course, no, in the interest of transparency and due process, and for the information of the general public, these details will unfold in the next few days. But for now, let me just give you a bird's eye view of who are involved. Apart, of course, from the conveners who took this very um, meaningful and great initiative to hold this People's Tribunal. First of all, we will have seven a 7-member panel of jurors from different countries of different disciplines, including lawyers, international lawyers, and many members of the different classes or sectors of society in different countries. Fairly geographically representative of the globe. No? So they will be present in Barcelona and sit as a panel of jurors, and this will be headed by a presiding juror, which will be recommended by the conveners, but will ultimately be decided by the jurors themselves. The next important cluster of individuals in the tribunal will be the prosecutors. We already have 6 prosecutors, also from different countries, all of whom are people's or human rights lawyers that will be assigned witnesses that will be presented before the tribunal, and introduce these witnesses in whatever form that they will testify. Another individual that will be important in the tribunal would be the what we call in Latin as the amicus curiae, no? Or in English, it's the friend of the court. There will be 1 or 2 amicus curiae or amici curiae in the plural form that will assist the tribunal in terms of legal opinion and advice when so called by the tribunal. And of course, to manage the administrative proceedings, the tribunal will be assisted by what we call as the clerk of court, which will manage the paperwork, the recording, the documentation, as well as the flow of the proceedings. And that person will also be in Barcelona before the tribunal. Apart from this, we have more or less more than a little less than 20 witnesses, a number of which will be expert witnesses who will give the framework, historical antecedent, and the rationale and the phenomenon of genocide and occupation, and genocide and ecocide. There will be 3 expert witnesses from different countries. And on top of that, there will be a little less than 20 witnesses from different parts of the globe, some of which will be testifying in person, some of which will be testifying via real-time Zoom, some of which will testify via pre-recorded video or audio testimonies, and finally, for um, very compelling security reasons, some of which will have to testify through written testimonies alone. And finally, that will complete the tribunal will be a legal team. It's a legal team of 6 or 7 people's lawyers, mostly from the Philippines, coming from my organization, our organization, the National Union of People's Lawyers in the Philippines, and of course our friends from the Arab countries. So that's the sketch of the personages that will be involved in the judicial and quasi-judicial tribunal. So, what are the issues that are going to be proven before the tribunal? Basically, there are three. One, in general, is about the genocide. We all know about that. We don't want to belabor it here for the lack of time, but the focus of the tribunal will be on ecocide, as already mentioned, the destruction of the farms, the waterways, the fishing grounds, the environment, uh, which was deliberately perpetrated by the Zionists. And on a secondary basis, or secondarily, an equally important issue that will be covered by the indictment would be the destruction of the cultural heritage, which is what happens during this genocidal war, as in many other countries. So that's what will be presented before the tribunal. And those issues and those charges will be contained, as it is already contained, by the way, in a multiple page indictment or charge sheet. We have come up with a one-page abstract of the indictment for public information and in dissemination. We will be publishing this full indictment in due time, well ahead of the tribunal, but close to the tribunal for security reasons. By the way, I forgot to say that to facilitate the proceedings given the global participation of many individuals and organizations, the primary language will be English, but there will be simultaneous translations in Spanish, in French, Catalan, and of course Arabic. Now, let me go through finally through the tribunal itself. Oh, no, no, by the way, before the tribunal, we intend and recommend that there will be a press conference a day before the tribunal, which would be a Friday, where the conveners or organizers, the clerk of court, the amicus or the friend of the court, as well as the prosecutors, will give you a more elaborate preview of what's going to happen in the next few days after the press conference. And the media is invited to this press conference. Now, on the first day. The first day, which is the 22nd of November on a Saturday, we'll go through the protocols of the welcome, the framework setting, the tone setting, the historical antecedents by the conveners. Of course, there will be cultural presentations from our Palestinian friends and comrades. But when the tribunal is called to session, the panel of jurors will be sitting en banc, no, together, and then the indictment or the charge sheet will be read by the clerk of court to give everybody the idea of what is going to happen, so that everybody will be on the same page. After which, the prosecution will make an opening statement, and then one after the other, the witnesses that I have mentioned, in whatever form they will testify, will be presented by the designated prosecutors. The first group of witnesses will focus on genocide, and then the second group of witnesses will now um, concentrate on the question of ecocide. After which, on the second day, um, after the last witness, there will be a closing or a summation of arguments by the prosecution and the defense, if they show up at all, and then the panel of jurors, through the presiding juror, will now retire to a room in executive session for them to deliberate, no, in so short a time, after 2 years of testimonies, a initial or summary verdict on the basis of what was presented before them, but also on the basis of documentary evidence that cannot be presented for lack of time, or submissions that we call, and they will weigh and evaluate in a credible, objective, and thorough manner, despite the limited time, to come up with a with an initial or summary verdict, which was what our experience during previous tribunals, where it was really a crunch time, no, for the panel of jurors to come up with a well-studied and credible findings of fact and findings of law, and that will be announced in open session when the tribunal is reconvened. And then finally, we envision that after the open session, where the verdict will be announced and read, um, there will be a press conference by the panel of jurors to elaborate and explain on the summary verdict, which would be the document that will presage the more lengthy decision that will come in the next 2 or 3 months after the defendants are given ample time to respond to the draft verdict. And then the conveners, upon the recommendation of the legal team, will be serving the verdict and later on the decision on the defendants in the official offices where they are located. So basically, that's the walkthrough. I hope you get a picture of what is going to unfold next weekend. Thank you very much, Azra. I'm open to any clarifications or questions now or later on. Salamat.
Thank you so much, Edre. That was comprehensive and made it much easier, I'm sure, for everyone to understand the critical importance of the tribunal, as well as to understand the flow of the tribunal. I will not try to go through all the points and the various legal proceedings that will follow, but just to let everybody know that it has taken months and months of preparation, of getting the testimonies together, of getting the jurors and prosecutors, people who have legal standing in the global society, and to make sure that it is a global representation that the tribunal will address. And yes, the press conference before and the press conference after to come up with a summary indictment, and later on with a longer, much more comprehensive document based on the tribunal proceedings as well. So I hope that what has been covered today gives you all a glimpse of what is what to expect at the tribunal next weekend in Barcelona. However, whether you plan to attend the event, or if you plan to maybe look for a recording later on, or even if you are unable to make it, follow the social media pages of the tribunal. You would get a sense of what we have been able to present to the world. The verdict that will be handed down by the tribunal jurors will only have enough power as we do, and our power comes from how we organize and how we stand up to the Zionists and the US imperialists. We must use the testimony given to continue to expose and to oppose the imperialist and genocidal crimes of the Zionists and their backers. So with that, let me hand over to our closing speaker. We will now hear from Rhonda Ramiro, the Vice Chairperson for External Affairs of the International League of People's Struggle, and representative of the International People's Front as well. Rhonda will talk about how the tribunal proceedings will be used to bolster mass movements building and international solidarity with the Palestinian people's struggle for national liberation. So we are all here in Barcelona already. So let me get up and invite Rhonda to come and talk to all of you. Rhonda.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Azra. Thank you, Lisa and Edre, and to all of the people, all of the organizers who have played a leading role in organizing this International People's Tribunal on Palestine. It has been a long road, but one that has not felt so heavy because we know that we're walking this path in solidarity with the Palestinian people who have been struggling for such a long time to end the ecocide, to end the genocide committed against them, and ultimately for the freedom of their beloved Palestine. At every stage of this IPT, the tribunal has been designed to inspire all of us, all people, to act, to not only learn about the ecocide and learn about the genocide and their root causes, but to act. And the people who are about to tell their stories in the tribunal are taking great personal risk to go on record with their accounts of the crimes committed against them personally and against all the Palestinian people as a people. And so to act in solidarity with them is really our duty. So what has each stage of this tribunal looked like? In the lead up, the tribunal included educational sessions, which delineated the history of Palestine and the Zionist occupation, explained what ecocide is, what is meant by the right to resist, and what it means to respect and act in solidarity with the right to self-determination. The lead up has included the production of educational materials, both printed and electronic, that explain the same as the aforesaid materials that I had mentioned. And it's included research and extensive documentation of the ecocide, of the genocide, which will be presented during the tribunal itself in the form of witness testimonies and the presentation of evidence. So up to now, the IPT on Palestine has produced educational presentations, educational materials, videos, and by next weekend, we will produce a verdict. A decision will come later, and other legal proceedings that will capture the evidence presented by the witnesses and narrate the story of famine, forced starvation, ecocide, and genocide committed by the Zionist entity and its main backers against the Palestinian people. So these will really become powerful tools in the hands of our members, endorsers, other organizations, and the broader public to pressure international bodies to take action against the culpable entities. This includes conducting advocacy with their parliaments and local governments to act, as well as submitting the verdict and proceedings to international bodies such as the UN General Assembly, the UN Human Rights Council, the International Court of Justice, and the International Criminal Court. But in addition to this diplomatic advocacy, we'll also engage our stakeholders in advocating for coverage of the tribunal outcomes by the mass media to help influence public attitudes towards supporting Palestinian liberation, the Palestinian liberation struggle, and condemning the Zionist occupation. And we hope that all of our supporters, all of you here today on this webinar will actually help us in obtaining this coverage in local and international media outlets to help amplify our message, help amplify the message of our witnesses to both parliamentarians and other government representatives who can exercise diplomatic measures against Israel. But, maybe even more importantly, this message needs to go to more grassroots people who can be mobilized to take actions like boycotting, like protesting, like lobbying, educating others, and taking many other forms of action. Further legal action is another arena of struggle in which the tribunal will contribute. So we will take this evidence and make it available to international organizations, to states, to regional courts, to individuals and others for use in or as references for future legal actions, which could include another tribunal, special UN tribunals, or even individual lawsuits. Beyond and complementary to this advocacy work, we will also use the documented evidence to catalyze political activism and mass action against the ecocide and genocide of the Palestinian people. Over the past 2 years, with every photo, with every video, with every audio recording and firsthand account of the atrocities committed by the Zionist occupiers, more people have been awakened to the historic injustice of the occupation. More people have been moved to act than ever before for Palestine. The IPT on Palestine will place new evidence on the record, and particularly on the issue of ecocide, the deliberate destruction of the environment to render it unable to sustain human life. And this evidence will be used to further fuel organizing campaigns against these war crimes and against the occupation itself. So this includes conducting political education at schools, universities, online, and in the streets. All of this education, we hope, will stimulate more agitation and demonstration against ecocide and forced starvation. We hope this will happen in cities and rural communities around the world. With these actions, we aim for the tribunal to contribute to many fields of people's struggle for the liberation of Palestine and beyond just the courtroom. In fact, immediately after the tribunal, we will use the proceedings as a tool in an action that we take ourselves the very next day after the tribunal. We won't share the details at this time, but we will conduct this action in Barcelona on Monday, November 24th. And if you are in town, we hope that you will join us. We hope that you will join us in conducting education. We hope that you will join us in conducting advocacy. We hope that you will join us in taking to the streets, to protesting, boycotting, and taking other forms of action, exercising our right to protest. As the organizers of the tribunal, we have created tools for education and action. We know that information, knowledge, and analysis can become great weapons when wielded by the people, when we have the courage and will to act. And so we ask that you join us in wielding the outcomes of this tribunal as a weapon that supports the Palestinian people in striking blows against the Zionist occupation and its imperialist backers until Palestine is free from the river to the sea. Free Palestine and long live international solidarity. I will pass it back to our fearless MC, Azra.
Hello, everybody. I'm back. So you will have a sense of how we are working together. It's a team, and it's a team which is not only physical, but we have so many people from everywhere helping us to build this tribunal. And as Rhonda said, it is very, very critical that the right to resist, the right to forever free Palestine from the Zionist entity and US imperialism rests in our hands. It does not rest anywhere else. 75 years of occupation and beyond is well known now because of the 2 years of very genocidal acts of the Zionist entity. The whole world knows now why Palestine and the Palestinian people are fighting for liberation. It is our duty, as Rhonda said, to ensure that we actually take to the streets, go to our own governments, go to all the international courts, which have the ability to stop this. We cannot rest till the genocide ends. As Lisa said, the genocide is ongoing and nobody can stop it but we, the people of the world. So I really, we call on the people of the world to come join us in stopping this atrocity that is happening, the ecocide, the forced starvation, weaponization of food, it is not only in Palestine, but in many parts of the world. And so we, the people, have to be united to fight imperialism, especially the United States imperialism. So thank you, Rhonda, so much for your words of inspiration. We will now go into our question and answer portion. You can type your questions into the Q&A box, and we will post them to the speakers. You can either direct your question to all the speakers in general or name a specific speaker. You may also raise your hand to unmute and ask your question verbally. Okay, so once again, thank you everybody, especially Edre and Lisa for being here, and Rhonda. While the tribunal serves as a critical moral and legal form, we know it is not an end in itself. The liberation of Palestine will be achieved by the people of Palestine themselves. So do we have any questions? I don't see any questions yet, and I really request people to send in their questions. We have quite a few people online. Till the questions come in, may I ask a question myself? Lisa, you did talk about the destruction of agricultural land, and can you just give us a sense of what are the most critical elements of ecocide and weaponization of food that you talked about? Just maybe some of the most critical elements that people should know about.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Ezra, for that question. So, ecocide and the destruction of agricultural lands and the agricultural sector in general has been a long-standing strategy by the Israeli occupation since actually its establishment. If you want to talk specifically about Gaza, even before the current genocide, there was the illegal blockade since 2007, and the Israeli occupation actually crafted a plan, like a calorie count, to keep Palestinians hungry just above the level of starvation. But during the current genocide, we see that strategy has only intensified. So from day one, it was announced that there will be no fuel, there will be no food, will be no water. And they have systematically targeted agricultural lands that can be cultivated as a way to prevent Palestinians from cultivating their own food. 98.5% of agricultural land has been destroyed in Gaza. There's only about maybe 2,000 dunums that can be cultivated. And even, like I mentioned early on, what is allowed to enter in Gaza is only junk food. This is what we are receiving from our people on the ground, that they're not allowing a nutritious food that can combat this man-made famine. And of course, they block any form of agricultural input that is necessary to rehabilitate and cultivate the lands. So I think this is the most important thing. And we see this strategy also in the West Bank, and we even see it in Lebanon. They've targeted olive orchards in the south. They are continuously targeting farmers and their lands and their livestock in the West Bank. So this is all part of the settler colonial strategy by the Israeli occupation.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And yes, so many of us need to really focus on ecocide so that we can make the grassroots people aware of what is happening. We do have a question from Kali Brook, and I'm assuming it is for Edre, but it's open to both. how the documentation of the crime of ecocide be a tool for return for refugees in Gaza. So I'll just repeat, how is the documentation of the crime of ecocide could be a tool for refugees to return to Gaza?
Yeah, well, as already mentioned by Rhonda, there are many ways by which we can use the not only the verdict but more so the decision as an impetus or added uh, basis to call for the return of the refugees to Gaza and to recover their lands, to rehabilitate their farms, to um, make the natural resources sustainable. So it can be a tool towards one of the tools, of course. It's not the decisive tool, or the tools to level up the call for the return of the refugees to Gaza.
Thank you, Edre. There's another question, and we are actually just giving the answer in the chat box, which is it was Anika asking a question on registration as she's going to be coming in late. I don't see any more questions here. I actually had another question, Edre, if you don't mind.
Of course.
You talked about the longer documentation that will come out, which will take about 2 to 3 months. And what is the process of writing that document, and who will be responsible?
Well, the ownership, of course, will be the panel of jurors, because after all, they're the ones who are going to evaluate, examine, weigh, test the credibility, admissibility, for that matter, of the evidence, the relevance of these matters, of these testimonies, what are the significant points that are established, and the facts and the law. It's longer because it's going to mention in details the specific portions of the testimonies that will support a finding of fact and later on a finding of law. Unlike the verdict, it can, because of the limited time, it's in a summary fashion saying that so and so was able to establish so and so. But in the decision, it's going to be a more detailed excerpt or reproduction of the pertinent portions of the testimony with specific references to the specific provisions of international instruments and conventions, which we cannot do in so little time, in 2 days. So the process is that after the verdict is handed down, to satisfy the requirement of fair play, uh, notwithstanding the overriding security considerations. It's obvious, no? Um, Everybody is putting their lives on the line here, no? Most especially the witnesses. But in the interest of fair play, the elementary requirement of informing the defendants what the charges are and what the evidence are will have to be satisfied. So the verdict will be served on the defendants in one form or another, after which the panel of jurors, with the help of the legal team, we know the jurors are all very busy, but with the legal team, we have devoted much precious time and knowledge and expertise on this, will assist, and also the amicus, no, or the amici curiae, because they're there to help. They're there to help the panel of jurors to draft a working decision, but ultimately it's going to be the panel of jurors who are going to decide one way or the other whether there is a consensus or unanimity or even some differences in opinion in one fact and the other. That's what happened really. It's not a mechanical process. Um, um, People might say, "Oh, it's a foregone conclusion." Not at all, really. Not at all. The strength and credibility of the verdict and the decision will depend on what will be presented in the tribunal. And not only what is presented, but whether or not they're credible, whether or not they are verifiable, whether or not they are representative of the phenomenon of ecocide. So it's not a mechanical thing. No, it's really a process by which people will evaluate and weigh evidence and even argue. I've been there for several times in executive sessions. It can be very intense, really, but ultimately, because everybody knows the bigger picture, they were able to come up with a verdict and later on a decision. And I'm very confident that with all the testimony that are in our possession, I think without preempting, of course, the process, that we have a case. We have a case, really.
Thank you, Edre, very much. And yes, we are immensely looking forward to the tribunal. It's one way of seeking justice, and yes, the verdict is open, of course, but we know what the witnesses have gone through and what will be provided. So if whatever happens with the verdict, we have the testimonies of the people on the ground, and that
Yeah.
is our strength. So thank you so much, Edre, Rhonda, and Lisa, for walking us through what has been happening after the ceasefire, and then what the legal team has been doing and what to expect at the tribunal, and of course, even after the tribunal.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And with that, I take my leave.
There's the closing. There's a closing script.
That's a closing.
There's a closing script.
Who's saying it?
Yep.
Enough, no. Wait.
Those are the last few things.
What do I say? Okay. Okay, friends. Sometimes people get very caught up in the actual legal process. So instead of closing right away, let me just once again go back to what we have to do. So with only 1 week away, we ask everyone planning to attend to please register if you have not already done so. You can register by visiting internationalsolidarity.org/tribunal-register. To do this, and you will receive additional information about the tribunal and a travel advisory upon registration. You can also sign up for the Right to Resist email list on the website to get regular updates on the preparations for the tribunal and to receive information on the results of what will come next. If you are registered, you will automatically be added to the email list. We will also be publishing updates and resources via social media. Please follow and subscribe to the Facebook and Instagram accounts of the organizers for updates. And these are at PCFS Global for the People's Coalition on Food Sovereignty, and then at International People's Front for the International People's Front, and then at ILPS _official in Instagram, and then at ILPS official in Facebook for the International League of People's Struggle. Please join the growing list of endorsers of the tribunal. Endorse at internationalsolidarity.org/tribunal-endorse. If you have already endorsed, please encourage other organizations you work with to endorse. Spread the word and tell them why you endorsed and why they should also do so. If you have not already done so, please consider sending a video message expressing your endorsement that we can use to encourage others to sign up as well. You can send one to the, you can send 1 or 2 minute videos to outreach@internationalsolidarity.org. We also urge you to donate to support the work of the International People's Tribunal. If you wish to donate, you can find the details on the donation page. Donation methods are listed there, and you can enter and you can email the address on the page, which is info@internationalsolidarity.org, to talk about other methods for making a donation now. If you are a member of press, please consider covering the tribunal and publishing articles written by our organizers and endorsers. We also have media spokespeople who are available for intervention upon request. Our press releases can be found on the website, and we will publish them on social media as well. Email palestineiptmedia@gmail.com to get in touch with us for media matters. I hope you people got what was needed. It's a lot of information, but if you also go to our website, you can find all of this information there as well. So with that, free, free Palestine, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. So friends, thank you so much. And with that, I will finally say my goodbyes. Thank you, everybody, once again. Bye.
Bye-bye.